Happy Monday. It's the week of the Fed meeting, and I'll tell you what, the markets are at quite the precarious place. We're going to take a look at the technicals to see where we are. We're actually going to take an intraday view on many of them. Bitcoin we're going to show on a daily basis because, as we know, Bitcoin never sleeps. So let's pop things up with, we'll start off with SPY, then QQQ, IWM. Quick touch on Nvda, Tesla, and also TMF, I think, is worth tossing in there today. So here's SPY. Check out this view that we have for SPY, and I'll tell you this trend line that we have right across the top is from the previous peaks that we've had, and I talked about this in my video last week. We didn't quite get there, so I did say watch for a rejection off this trend line. Well, we had resistance, which I also had on here for you at 562.80, and you can see we had some trouble with that last week on Friday. In the pre-market hours, still having a little bit of trouble with that, and we're narrowing down, looking for either way for a breakout. I think that Fed meeting on the 18th, the thing that we're nervous about isn't necessarily what Jerome Powell's going to say. I think it's what the Summary of Economic Projections, the SEP, is going to say. So what that's going to say, especially where unemployment rate is involved, we'll talk more about that in a future video. It's one of the things that I have coming up either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. I'll give my take on that, what we should be expecting, and also what to watch out for and how it could impact the markets. So absolutely watch this trend line off the previous peaks. If we're able to get up above it, that can be a bullish thing. I don't know that we'll get there prior to Wednesday. We're going to have to watch and see. If we do, 565 to 566 are about where we can find the next resistances to the upside on this. And let me just adjust these lines just a little bit. There we go. Now that I'm zoomed in, I can see a little bit better where those are at. So yeah, watch 565, watch 566 if we're able to get over this trend line. If not, we have 559, almost 560 down below on this. So I'm actually going to turn that green for you, and then we'll watch for that to hold up as support. If not, we have 558 down below, and you guys can see that we actually have a decent amount of support to catch us all the way down to this bottom trend line, which is in the mid 540s in the near term anyway, but it is slanting upward, so that could carry us into the low 550s as well. And let's move with that into the Qs, and this again off the previous peaks. And now it depends on how you're looking at this, because this top one is one that I shared in the Friday morning video last week that said watch out for the rejection off this trend line. But when you take an intraday view, there's actually one that's a little bit lower on this one that we actually struggled around both of them that I think are both worth checking out and both worth watching. So it depends on if you're looking intraday or if you're looking at extended hours trading as well, where there's some different peaks in there that happen in the after hours or in the post market on previous days. So it really depends on how you're looking at that, but you can see the rejection that we got. Let me move this 471.91. Let's move that out of the way for the moment so that you guys can see that price action that we have happening here and the sort of rejection that we've got so far. So we'll see if we have a little bit of profit taking leading up to that coin flip from the Fed, or if it's something that we end up beating these trend lines here and going bullish. This is part of a bigger consolidation pattern, which is also worth mentioning. So let me reset the view. There you go. You can see those lines drawn better here. And again, the reason why it's doubled up is it depends on if I was using the extended hours or if I was using the regular trading hours. So each one has just a small adjustment to it. So let's, with that, move over to IWM. Off IWM's previous peaks that we have, we're up near resistance and this trend line coming across the top of this. The bottom part is actually the top of a bullish channel, and be watchful for that. So 219 looks to be about where we're peaking out, and I'd be surprised before Wednesday, before we hear from Jerome Powell, for us to break this top trend line that we have on here. It could happen. We have resistance to the upside around 222, and then up above that, this thick, slightly diagonal line that you see on here. This is really a point where you start to see selling pressure come in on IWM. If we are able to break up above that, I do have a price target at about 228, and there's a ton of technicals here. I'm not going to get into all of them for this video. If we do break to the downside, you can see the support prices that are in here as well for your viewing pleasure, my friends. Let's move over to Nvda. Nvda has broken up out of support. It was resistance before, but since we were using it as support, I colored it green. If we fall down through it, we get that resistance again. 118 might hold up for us. If not, we have about 116 coming our way, and you guys can see the different prices that we have to the downside of that and to the upside. Again, off the previous peaks that we've had recently, since we're getting near so many all-time highs or recent highs for prices, depending on what it is that we're looking at. For Nvda, the most recent highs that we've had coming off those peaks, you can see the trend line that's formed off those peaks. and where we could possibly go with that into the mid to high 120s. If we're able to get up there, if we're able to hold that support, we should have a fair amount of room to the upside, possibly up to about 125. And again, the downside prices are on there for you. For Tesla right now, we are right in between these trend lines right here. We were able to take 228, not quite able to get up to 233 yet. We're going to have to watch for that to see if we can get there. On the daily chart, we do have a fair amount of selling pressure around these prices. Let me reset the view so you can see it better. And we'll zoom in there. There we go. Stretch it out. Perfect. So you guys can see from these high wicks and from this big red candle, we are getting that selling pressure below 233. So watch for that in order to get up there. If not, like I said, about 218, 219, actually 228, I'm sorry, is going to be our support that we have down here. I'll even color that green for you because we have been able to close up above that. Down below that, we have even more support down at about 222 all the way down to about 221. And then you guys can see the other values that I have in here. I'm going to change this over to green and we're going to call it support because that has also changed since we're able to break back up above that value. See if I can spell support. There we go. And click OK. We got that one. Bitcoin. We were able to break 60K. We were not quite able to get to my price target, but we got darn close. 61,919. We got to 60,670 was where we peaked out before we turned back around. Watch for this support down here. We were able to break up above it. Good. We'll change that over to critical support. Boom. There we go. Just keep on updating these as we go here. There we are. Anytime that you break support like that, becomes resistance. Break resistance, becomes support. That's about the bounce that you have. Floor becomes the ceiling. Ceiling becomes the floor is the idea behind it. And turn back around. Watch for that critical support down to this side of it. 60K is still our resistance to the upside. And you guys can see that the price targets TMF. If we get weakness in the markets, we're also, gosh, riding this top trend line, the consolidation pattern. Breaking up above that, we might see 67 come out, maybe even 73. It depends. If we get rejected, we have some pretty strong support to the downside of this, coming in at about $60 per share, and then down below that, all the way down to about $53 to $54 per share. So, guys, wild time in the markets. We would need to be on the lookout, be a little bit cautious, I think, leading up to that Fed meeting results on Wednesday at 2 p.m. 2:30 is when Jerome Powell comes out to speak, but by 2 we will have the summary of economic projections. The market will react immediately to whatever it sees. Will we see Goldilocks and the market skyrockets, or will we see signs of recession and the market tanks? We're just going to have to play this very carefully, and I will share with you my thoughts on the summary of economic projections with some of the impacts that we could see based on the numbers that the Fed might put out. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning, and we'll see you in the next video.